Let's talk a little Lions football right now with a man who needs no introduction, but we'll give him one anyway. The great Lomas Brown, Lions radio analyst, one of the great Lions of all time, won a Super Bowl with the Giants, joins us now. Lomas, thanks so much for your time, my friend.
Hey, thanks for having me, guys.
Absolutely. Hey, Lomas, let's start with this news that we were talking about today. Dan Campbell said they're going to play DeAndre Swift this week and just see how it goes. Pretty unsure of his health situation. What do you make of that? What's your reaction to that?
Yeah, that's just been one of the mysteries. I swear, DeAndre has, just from an injury standpoint, and it's not just this year. It's just been throughout his career, his young career so far. He just hadn't been able to stay healthy, and it seems to be kind of like the nagging injuries that are getting him. It's not injuries that require surgery or anything like that, but it's injuries that kind of linger, seems like, and he's just had the injury bug. So it's kind of you don't know what to think when coach says that. You don't know whether they're holding him back. You don't know whether he's holding himself back. You just don't know what's going on with him. But we miss the guy. The guy is such a huge weapon for the Lions, and he brings so much to the offense. He's a guy that we definitely have to have out there if the Lions have any chance of winning any games.
No doubt about it. And when healthy, I think DeAndre Swift is a top 6 running back in this league, maybe even higher than that. But if he's not healthy, at 1-6, I guess should you even play him at 1-6 if he's hurt? Let him sit.
I mean, but how is that helping? How is that helping you? How is that helping your team? How's that helping your team morale? Because right now, to me, the hardest job is going to be with Dan Campbell. And it's going to be keeping those guys excited about playing for him, keeping those guys excited about coming to practice, keeping the juice up around that organization. When you see a coach get fired, when you see one of your top players get traded off, and you're sitting at 1-6, I mean, it's not a lot to look forward to if you're a player sitting in that locker room. So Dan Campbell's going to really have to concentrate on the psyche of his players and make sure that they're still all bought in and they're out there willing to do what they need to do to try to continue to try to get victories.
Long, what's up, baby?
Hey, what up, Braylon?
You know what time it is. Hey, just jumping back into the DeAndre Swift thing, because you are right. You want to see a guy, you get drafted to do a job, you get turned, you become the starter to do a job. People talk about you, and then when you see that job being done, you're like, this is why we bought the guy. And you look at the Philly game, you look at what happened the following week, you look at the Commanders game. But with that being said, this is a very pivotal moment in DeAndre Swift's career as a Detroit Lion. Don't you agree? Because if he can't be the guy to go out there, if he's healthy enough to play but doesn't want to play, he's on his Kawhi Leonard type deal. If that's the situation, because I don't know, isn't it time to maybe make that move that we didn't want to hear as Detroit Lions and move on?
Either move on or bring somebody else in to push them. I mean, I know Jamal is there and they make a A-B combination, and I think it's a great combination. But, I mean, maybe you bring somebody in to push them, Braylon. I just, think about it. The running back out of any position, their window closes real fast. I mean, if you don't get your money, for your second contract, you're basically not going to get paid as a running back. I mean, so DeAndre has to know that his window of opportunity is closing too. And I know he wants to get a big contract, but the window is closing for that to happen. He knows he has to be out on the field. Deuce knows that. Yeah, if you go back and remember during Hard Knocks, he talked to DeAndre about that during training camp, saying there's certain injuries that you have to be able to play through, and he was expecting him to play through a lot of these injuries. So you hate to talk about that, and you know that, Braylon. We
Yeah.
hate to talk about how hurt another guy is because we don't know that. You know what I'm saying? We don't know his body. We don't know. But again, we do know that your best ability is your availability.
100%. 100%.
Hey, Lo, I wanted to ask you about obviously the big news this week. T.J. Hawkinson getting moved out to the Vikings. Out of all the teams, they sent him to the Minnesota Vikings, and this is a guy that Brad Holmes, Dan Campbell, that regime, they didn't pick him. And I look at DeAndre Swift, they didn't pick him either. So I don't think DeAndre is going to be here for very long if he can't get on the field. But what's your take on T.J., a 25-year-old tight end? Maybe he's not Travis Kelce. We all know that. But I think he's above average tight end, and you sent him to a division rival to move up 2 spots in the draft.
I mean, to me, I'm not a swimmer. I don't know where I'm coming up with this phrase from, but we tread water, man. We tread water as an organization sometimes. I mean, think about the guys we've had here that we let go, and now we're trying to replace them again. Think about Darius Slay, and now we're trying to place him with a Jeff Okudah. Just think of, let's go to a Quandre Diggs. You even go back to a Golden Tate. A possession receiver, a healthy receiver, a guy that you knew was gonna be there. Go back to Snacks Harris. Just all these guys that we're trying. It just seems like we're treading water. Now you got TJ. You had Matthew Stafford. Just all these guys that we've had that we've let go or traded or whatever we've done. Now we're trying to replace these guys. So it's almost like you take 2 steps forward and 3 or 4 steps backwards. Because, you have the guys there, you bring them through the organization, and then you decide, well, we're going to go in another direction, and it doesn't help the team. Like you say, we moved up a couple of spots. I was just really shocked by us not keeping TJ. I think it hurt the team. And I think if I was sitting in the locker room right now, it would be a hard sell for me. If I'm sitting there, I mean, it's a lot of other reasons why I'm going to go and give my all, but it would be a hard sell to say, yes, we're getting better as a team in this direction we had to go in.
To hear Dan Campbell say, and Brad Holmes, by trading Hawk, it opens up positions for other guys. Why can't you use those other guys and Hawk at the same time? I mean, I don't get it. I mean, there's plenty of room to move people around. This team isn't winning. You're 1-6, and you trade with a team that you traded with in April in the draft. Let me ask you, do you think they had some type of deal that said, hey, we'll stick together here. If we're not going anywhere, maybe we might want T.J. Hawkinson later in the season, and you throw us a crumb because we let you move up to get Jamison Williams. I don't know. Is that such a thing?
I hope not.
Yeah.
I hope not. I hope they didn't work that out because I don't think the Lions knew that they were going to be sitting at 1-6 at this point in the season. I really don't think that. So I don't feel that's the reason why. But
he said if he was 6-1, they would trade him. He says if they were 6-1, they still would have made the trade.
Yeah, I don't know. That's hard to say because you're talking hypotheticals because you're not 6-1. We 1-6, so it's hard to say what you would do when you're 6-1. I know one thing: winning covers a lot of things when you're winning. So I don't know.
Yeah, and for the Detroit Lions, they don't win, so we wouldn't know about that being covered. Hey, Lomas, let's cut to the nitty gritty. The Detroit Lions, whether is DeAndre Swift going to play or not, is if the Lions were this, is if the Lions had that. The Lions are 1-6 right now, going into Week 9. After coming off a season, they were 3-13-1. Who are the Detroit Lions right now, Lomas Brown, and what are the next steps?
Well, okay, so I'll say this. I was really shocked that Aubrey Pleasance got fired. I really was. I thought this whole coaching staff would be safe, and maybe it was just a call from Dan, and maybe that was his call. I don't know if it came from higher up, but I was really shocked that he got fired because in my mind, I figured that the Fords would fall on the sword for this year because, again, I'm talking about what happened in the last regime by letting them trade away some of your good players, knowing that they were on thin ice. So I just thought that the forwards would say, hey, we're still trying to get talent here. We're still trying to rebuild. So we'll fall on the sword for this year, regardless of what the record was or is going to be at the end of this year. I thought that would happen. I was wrong when RB got fired. So now it's just like, where's the organization going? I guess they have a grand plan. I guess it's going with the youth movement and the draft picks that they have. I guess that's the plan moving forward. Like I say, we're on the outside looking in. I can only guesstimate what's going on the inside, but they have to be, from what they're doing, they have to be looking at these draft picks, figure that they're going to get a quarterback and be able to help that defense next year through the draft.
Lomas, how is it viewed around the league, do you think? And we talked to Mike Tannenbaum, former GM of the Jets, executive vice president of the Dolphins, now at ESPN this week. We talked to Mark Sanchez, who's now an NFL analyst at Fox this week. When it comes to the Detroit Lions, Dan Campbell's been in this job a year and a half. He fired a coach last year in Anthony Lynn. He fired a coach this year. How is that viewed? Does that seem like chaos within an organization on the outside?
I mean, I wouldn't say that because, again, the guys continued to play hard for Dan, even after Anthony Lynn. If you think about it, the offense actually got better towards the end of last year. And they were able to win some games. So as a player, when you see that, then you're like, okay, you could buy into that. You could see why the move was made. You can kind of understand it. We just have to see how this turns out with the defense, whether this defense is going to continue to get better because they were horrendous. But if they're going to continue to get better, then we'll see. We'll have a sample enough size, or the players will have enough size to say, hey, whether that was a panic move, feel like that was a panic move to fire coach, or whether that move made them a better defense and they progressively got better throughout the season. Only time will tell right now, but we do have a small sample size of when that happened with Anthony Lynn last year. The offense did play better.
All right, Lomas, let's go to April. That's our Super Bowl, right? The draft. We got 2 number ones. We got 2 number twos. Let's just start with those first 4 picks. You're the general manager. I'm making you the boss. What positions are you taking with those 4 picks?
Well, I definitely got to find somebody on defense. I'm gonna get me a quarterback. Okay. I'm gonna get me a quarterback, but I just don't know, depending on how high I draft.
You're picking in the top 3.
There's a lot of quarterbacks out there. There's a lot of quarterbacks coming out this year, besides the obvious 2 that's always talked about. So, but I got to get somebody to help me on defense, man. I got to get Will Anderson. I got to get him because I got to get an impact guy that I can move around, almost like a Micah Parsons, because you just need so much help on that side of the ball. You got to have a guy that's versatile, that can play different positions. So I get my Will Anderson. I get him. And then the second pick, I'm trying to get me a quarterback with that. At least the first 2 picks for me.
And a running back, obviously?
Yeah, I'm going to look at a running back. I could get me a running back in the 2nd, 3rd round. I could get me a running back then. But I'm definitely got to look for some depth behind DeAndre, or somebody to push DeAndre, or somebody that could possibly run next to DeAndre. And, of course, I'm keeping Jamal, too. So, I mean, again, you can find a running back later in the draft.
How about when you were back in the glory days with Barry Sanders and all those playoffs in the 90s? Yeah. Let's go back there when Wayne Fontes was the boss and people were taking pot shots at him and calling him Rasputin, and he's living another week, and you can't fire Wayne Fontes. It was great. I mean, that was the glory days to me as a Lions fan, and you happen to be part of it. Did you ever remember like a shakeup what Dan Campbell is going through with this team? In other words, fired Anthony Lynn. Now he fires Aubrey Pleasant. I know Wayne let his brother go, but was there any other ones that I'm forgetting?
Nah,
It was my
man.
brothers.
I don't think so.
No,
Yeah.
look, man.
He let Barry's brother go.
Yeah. No, what used to happen with us is that we knew we had it good with Wayne. So we would have our player onlys meeting. And man, we would be in there and man, you just let everything go in that players only meeting. And there'd be some stuff you'd be hearing about. You'd be like, whoa, man, in the players only. But we used to always do that because we knew how good we had it with Wayne. And we were like, look, we don't know who they may bring in here if they let Wayne go. So we need to start kicking some butt. And that's why we used to always, if you always notice, the team in the 90s,
Thanksgiving.
we used to always start. That's when we would start around that because that's when the pressure would be on Wayne. That's when you guys in the media or those guys in the media, that's when they would be on Wayne. So we'd be like, look, man, so we would rip off like 5 games in a row, 6 games in a row,
Glory
and get
days.
ourselves in the playoffs.
Last thing, and this is from me. Last thing is somebody that knows you guys. I know you know Jerry Ball, you, Pat, Herm, Barry. I go way back with you guys. I know you my
you
whole.
calling out the old
Come
school.
on, man. Come on, Brock Porsche. Like I was there when Seldom Blues opened. He had me in the building.
Hey, we had Bubba Baker on last week, your buddy.
But just here's the question: the teams you talked about, the teams you and Maz just talked about in terms of having those players. You had players that could speak up. You had players that everybody in there trusted their word, that had been there, had been battle tested. When you look at the Detroit Lions right now, you look on the defensive side of the ball, there are no players with that veteran leadership that I'm looking up to. Whether you want to say it's Michael Brockers, et cetera, I'm not listening to Michael Brockers. I'm not listening to Charles Harris. They don't have anything for me as a lead in terms of leadership. You look on that offensive side of the ball, the linemen are the catalyst, but we all know linemen are typically the most vocal individuals. Now what does it fall to? Well, your wide receiver core, they're all young. Your tight ends, they're all young. Your running back, he's the most quiet person on the team. And then Jared Goff is also quiet. They don't have anybody that they can go to.
And Jalen, Braylon. I'm adding a J to you.
That's all good.
Hey,
It's Friday.
Braylon, and I would say this. I have been saying that even when Matthew was here, even when Matthew Stafford was here, think about it. Because Matthew wasn't really a vocal leader like that.
Nope.
We really didn't have, you might have had maybe Darius Slay, maybe. But think about the Lions back then. You really didn't have nobody. And I would say that. I said that back then that they didn't really have leaders in that locker room to where when they were going through these lulls or they going through these low points in the season, they wouldn't have anybody that can stand up and right the ship or tell these guys, hey, things are going to be all right. This is just a part of the season you go through, but you have to keep persevering through it and doing this, doing that. We had plenty of them in the locker room back when I was there, from Spielman to Benny Blades to, like you say, just anybody. You can pick so many guys that were leaders on that team. And until they get that back, they're going to have a lot of ups and downs. And I don't know how they're going to navigate some of those downs that they're going to have until you get that leadership back up in the locker room. So that's a great point that you made, man. And I've been saying that for years. Like I say, even when Matthew Stafford was here, I was saying the same thing. They didn't have enough leaders in that locker room. So when they have those low points, they can ride through those.
All that being said, watch the Lions win this week.
Hey, I'll say this. I've been watching Green Bay on tape. OMG.
Terrible.
Man, I'm telling you, Aaron Rodgers doesn't look the same.
Hey, Lomas.
Aaron been talking about his receivers. Braylon, he's been putting a lot of that on his receivers, but he's not the same quarterback. He's just not, man. Some of the throws, I seen some overthrows. I seen things I've never seen Aaron Rodgers do, man. So it's not just on his receiving core that he's not playing at that level. He's not playing at the level that we're used to seeing him at. So you're right. The Lions got a real shot this weekend.
Lomas, I said, and we'll let you go. Thank you. You're so generous with your time. I said to these guys all summer long, once Devontae Adams left for the Raiders, I said Green Bay was a 7-win football team. These guys wanted to kick me off the show.
We did.
I think I'm going to be
I
right.
don't know if they're going to win 7.
That's great. Lomas, thanks so much, my friend. We'll be listening on Sunday. And again, we certainly appreciate your time. So
always,
generous with
Thanks,
your time
Hey, y'all
always.
take care, man. Anytime.